Your host, Ashanti Davis, Exhibition Manager here at the Fleet Science Center. If you loved our Women in STEM episode, you are going to love this one, which is all about the power of influence. We had an opportunity to connect with educators from Kearny High School of Digital Media and Design, and they shared with us a project that they gave to their 11th graders this year. Their students had an opportunity to rethink how they saw STEM professionals and profile over 20 individuals working in science, technology, engineering, and math, many of whom are right here in San Diego. So sending you now to our special correspondence in the field. Take it away, students of Kearny DMD.
If I asked you to draw a scientist, what would you draw? Studies show that when school children are asked to draw a scientist, they typically draw older, white men. But at the School of Digital Media and Design, we want to change the way people think about STEM. So, we decided to create STEM stories. Students at DMD partnered up with a STEM professional from an underrepresented population, and we preserved their stories and shared them with the community so that everybody can see themselves reflected in STEM.
Hi, I'm Anthony. I'm a student of Kearny's Digital Media and Design.
Hi, I'm Lily, and I'm a student of Kearny's Digital Media and Design. All right, our project, STEM Stories, The Power of the Influencer, was focused on the problem of underrepresented minorities in STEM fields. Using an article from the National Science Foundation called Women, Minorities, and Persons with Disabilities in Science and Engineering, we noticed that 2017 data demonstrates a shocking disparity between women, minorities, and persons with disabilities residing in the US, and the percentage of them in science and engineering employment in comparison to white males. After identifying this problem, we collected 20 STEM professionals who were proven minorities, meaning people from different races, socioeconomic backgrounds, part of the LGBTQIA+ community, female, etc. We then asked them a series of questions regarding the background and experiences in their field, revealing interesting new data. Every professional highlighted the importance of mentorship and support, as well as overcoming barriers and challenges to reach goals. Becoming a STEM professional as a minority in the US is not easy, as our research has proven, and takes more support and includes more barriers than it should. As the importance of STEM fields in our society increases over time, it is important to have a diverse workforce, and that can't happen without proper representation. Our project seeks to show the diversity of STEM in our community, and in doing so, influence more minorities to fulfill and pursue their interests.
Thank you, Lily, for providing some context about our STEM Stories project. Now we're going to hear several conversations between my classmates at DMD and their STEM professionals that they work with this year. Our first interview will be with Jessie and Dr. Kailyn, who is an immunologist, and will talk about the effects of COVID-19 on her work.
I'm Jesse, and I'm a student at Kearny High School, and COVID-19 had impacted me in many ways. Like, I can't see my friends no more. I can't go to school, and school is really one of the biggest impacts because I can't really learn as good as I used to, and I can't really ask the questions as I did in class. So, Dr. Kailyn, as an immunologist, how has the widespread of COVID-19 affected your work effort, and how have you adapted to this?
Yeah, so I'm going to speak generally first because it's the most optimistic view. I am a scientist who works on infectious disease, and I study how we make immune responses to infectious disease and how we remember. So the basis of vaccines. So in a weird way, this has probably been good for my business. We have a lot of scientists in my field right now that have come together and made heroic efforts to identify the virus, sequence the virus so we know what proteins it's expressing. We have started making vaccines, and there's even vaccines that have been pushed into clinical trials already. We have some drugs that are can be used for compassionate care already. So I think it's really been this impressive heroic effort of a lot of smart people internationally that have pushed, and I feel proud as a scientist that in a small way I've contributed to that, and that scientists can actually come together and do that for the good of humanity. I think another good thing that has come out of that is we've seen a lot of scientists speak publicly. And I think that's one thing that's lacking in our field, where scientists actually communicate to the public, and that leads to a lot of mistrust of scientists. So we've seen a lot of people who've dedicated their life to studying infectious disease come out and speak. And a lot of those people are responsible for making the CDC guidelines and flattening the curve, if you will. So I hope it's the small minority who don't trust scientists, and that as we speak out more, they really know that we are just in it for the greater good of humanity, and we really just want to make treatments that better human health. But personally, as a woman, and where in society a lot of the home care and kid care has been pushed onto women, like I feel that impact. I am the one that I'm looking after my 2-year-old, my 5-year-old that can't go to daycare and school anymore. I'm trying to homeschool, and I'm trying to be a scientist and be productive. And I know I'm not the only one that's feeling that. There's been data that's come out where men have actually been more productive during this time, and women have actually been less productive. So men are submitting papers, are writing more grants, and women are just dealing with the responsibilities of society. So I think that's been hard. But
thank you, Dr. Kailyn, for your time today. And it was really interesting hearing your information today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Wow, I just learned a lot. Now let's hear a conversation between Amari and Dr. Lord about the connections between engineering and social justice.
Hi, I'm Amari, and I attend Kearny High School, School of Digital Media and Design, and I'm graduating in the year 2021. Hi, Dr. Lord. My question for you was, how do you incorporate social justice into electrical engineering?
All right, good question. Most people don't think of social justice and engineering going together at all, but engineering is fundamental to many of the things that happen in our society, right? Virtually everyone now has a cell phone, people use televisions and things. All those are things that electrical engineers have designed. And so I think it's really important for our students to be thinking at the beginning end now of, as we're designing things, whose voices are being heard and how we design these, and how are we thinking about who benefits and who pays from the technology that we develop. So it took me many years to figure out something that I thought would work as far as combining some of these, but one of the things I've done recently is in my circuits class, we talk about different devices that are used to make something like a cell phone or a radio or TV. And one of those devices is a capacitor. And this capacitor, usually we just talk about, you know, the equations that govern its behavior. But a couple of years ago, I started talking about where do the materials come from that are inside the capacitor. And it turns out most of them come from the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Africa, which is an area that has a lot of conflict. And so we then talk with the students about, what does it mean we're using a material that comes from an area of conflict, where by purchasing these materials, we're actually fueling the conflict that happens there? And you know, what kind of decisions could we be making if we didn't want to use so much of those materials? And then I have the students research a company that they know, like Apple or Samsung or Intel or something, where they're familiar with the products, and look at that company's policies regarding conflict minerals, which is what these minerals are called, minerals that are mined in areas that have a lot of conflict. And if they're in the United States, they're required to talk about the way they interact with these conflict minerals. And so then my students get to see what that looks like. And sometimes they're impressed by what the companies do, and sometimes they're appalled, and sometimes they're just like, I don't know, there's like, 50 pages of stuff that they're saying, but I can't actually tell what they're doing. But then we have a discussion about what that means. And so my hope is that moving forward, both as consumers of things like electronics and as designers of the electronics, they may at least be thinking of this larger context of where do those materials come from. So that's one example of one of the ways that we try to do that in our curriculum. As you look forward and you envision yourself as a woman in a STEM field, you said you're interested in medicine. How do you see yourself in that role, and maybe some of the challenges or some of the ways you can contribute?
For me, I want to go into nursing, and I want to specialize in neurology. Where I see myself going is I just want to be able to be that person that people look up to and just be like, if she can do it, I can do it. I have a little sister, so I want her to know that it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter your gender, it doesn't matter your sexual orientation. If you put your mind to it, you can do it. I also have two aunts who are nurses, so I have like people I can actually look up to. My mom just got her doctorate in strategic leadership. So if I have questions about that, I can ask her. As far as like going into this field, I still know that there are issues with race and there are issues with sexism. So I'm still aware of that. But I feel like people who have gone into this medical field, who have helped break boundaries down, have really helped me and inspired me to go into this medical field, because I know that my journey in going into this field isn't going to be as hard as their journey has been. So that's how I see myself going into medicine.
Excellent. Well, because we need lots of good nurses, especially at this time. And
thank you, Dr. Lord. I appreciate this conversation.
I never thought social justice and engineering would intertwine with one another. All right, next up, we have an interview between Kailyn and Dr. Ruiz.
Hi, my name is Kailyn. I go to Digital Media and Design, and I am in the class of 2021. It was really nice interviewing you back in the fall whenever we were still in school. And my question for you is, what motivated you to go into mathematics?
Yeah, that was a good time back in the fall when we were still in school. So I actually have a really long answer to this question because I didn't actually realize that I wanted to go into mathematics until after I finished my undergraduate degree. So when I went to college, I did take my math requirement. I took Calculus 1, but then I stopped. And I studied a lot of stuff about social justice and social movements and how people impact what goes on in the world. And from there, I really wanted to find a career where I could have an impact, a positive impact on my community. And I ended up creating a major called Social Change and Social Control. And it was a mixture of sociology and political science and anthropology and that kind of stuff. So I didn't use my math at all, really, in that major. But then when I graduated, or shortly before I graduated, I started tutoring in Oakland. I started tutoring in math because it was the only thing I felt comfortable tutoring in. So I started tutoring it and got really interested in how they were learning it. And in particular, I started seeing that itself as a social justice issue, because a lot of students in Oakland didn't have access to the level of math education that I had growing up in a suburb in Southern California. And that was keeping them out. It was making it harder for them to get into their college of choice. There were really bright students that maybe they wanted to go to UC Berkeley where I went, but they didn't have the math to get in. Or they did get into a college that they wanted to go to, but they had to take remedial classes. They had to take extra semesters of math before they could start taking their math that counted towards their college credit. That put them even further behind if they wanted to go into a STEM career. So it was an issue that there was an inequity there that I felt was really important to address. And so I started thinking about becoming a math teacher. And even though these students didn't have access to really great math education, a lot of the times it was because they had subs coming in and out of the classroom. They didn't have consistency. They didn't have the resources at their school that I did growing up. But the math teachers that they did have were really fantastic. And they became my mentors, and they really taught me a lot about the way that students can learn math that was very different from the way that I learned it. So I started becoming interested in being a math teacher, and started going back to school to take more math classes in order to do that. I did teach high school math for a short time and found it to be extremely challenging for so many reasons beyond the mathematics. And part of it was the mathematics. The calculus that I had taken in undergrad was not enough for me to feel like I could be a great math teacher in high school. So I decided to go back and take more math classes. And at that point, I had the motivation now. I had a reason to learn math. And so I started being able to see what was really cool about it. And I just fell in love with it and didn't want to stop. Okay, so how do you see yourself as, you plan on going into STEM and taking a lot more math classes in college, I assume. How do you see your future in STEM?
Well, I would like to become a nurse, and I'm not sure what I would like to specialize in though yet. I was planning on taking or doing an internship this summer at Sharp Hospital, but because of the coronavirus, it was not able to happen. And in my future as a woman in a STEM career, I know that I am going to be facing obstacles, but I would like to believe that I will be able to overcome them.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot out there. And, you know, I could say that one of my obstacles in going into math was not seeing a lot of women doing it. And at one point I was asked to write a paper about a mathematician. And that was a turning point for me because I realized I couldn't really find very many women to write about. And I went to the library and there were literally books on the shelves called Men of Mathematics. And I was like, where's the one where I'm going to find the woman? And that kind of motivated me as well. You know, sort of going into the field through this lens of it being a social justice issue, seeing that extra layer of not having representation of women, and not having representation of a lot of Latin American mathematicians really made me, you know, more motivated to get through and go as far as I could.
Thank you so much for letting me interview you again. It was really nice to hear.
Yeah, it was nice talking to you.
I always thought that you had to know what you wanted to major in when you got into college. It's so cool that Dr. Ruiz didn't know what she wanted to do in her junior year, but she was able to make one of her own. And now, our final conversation we will hear from is between Maya and Dr. Michelle, who will share with us the connections that they see between art and science.
Hi, my name is Maya. It's nice to talk to you again.
You too. Nice to talk to you too, Maya.
I wanted to ask you what connections you see between art and science.
I see a lot of connections, and I think one of my favorite connections is, well, I have several. One of my favorite connections is something that you put on your story card, and it was that I see science as always new. There's always something new, and I think art is the same way, and being creative. Every time that you want to draw a picture, or you're thinking about making some music, it's always new. And a lot of the times it starts out kind of in your head, and then you get to create it into this like common space with people. And science I see a little bit as the same thing. When I'm thinking about doing an experiment or asking some questions, it kind of starts in my head, and then I get to do the experiment, so it kind of brings it out into the world. And so I see that the same kind of sharing for art and science, starting off with something new, maybe just an idea, and then having it like emerge out into the world, into a space that you can share it.
When I was learning and doing research about what you do, looking at the art really helped me understand like more about your career. And I think that being able to use art to show like findings is really important to get messages across to other people. I think that using art is like a really important tool to use to like spread knowledge and awareness about topics. Like with the story card that we made, we were able to use that to spread awareness about minorities in STEM, since it's a white male dominated industry.
Yes,
so yeah, we were able to use our art to show anyone, like show everyone that no matter who you are, you can be whatever you want and you can be in the STEM industry. And I think that is really important.
But I also think about the whole trend in infographics. So, you know, you see them everywhere where they take like some kind of information and they put it in a picture, you know, whether it's statistics about, you know, population or food that people eat or growth rates of something or how much something costs. It's a really nice way to take a lot of information, whether it's scientific or statistical or some other kind of type of information, kind of packaging it up all in a nice little box where you can look at it once And in a fairly short amount of time, you can understand what's happening, you know?
Yeah, we learned a lot about making infographics in school and like how the main purpose is to really get across like the meaning behind it in like a visual way that's like pleasing and easy to understand.
Right. Yeah, a lot of the, you know, the coronavirus, which is what everyone is talking about, I think that it's a really great opportunity to show some pretty complex science, but it's science that affects everyone, every single person, and right now. So it's information that is useful to people right now that they're also interested in. And that doesn't often happen in science, where there's this international audience that's asking for scientific information.
Yeah, I think overall, like connecting art and science is like extremely beneficial because like it helps so much with like spreading knowledge about like really important topics such as like what we're going through now in this pandemic. So, yeah, thank you for talking with me. I had a lot of fun making the story card.
Great, thanks.
And that was our final interview. I hope you all enjoyed each and every one of the videos that you saw. Now, this year has been harder than we all thought because as students, COVID-19 has been detrimental because we weren't able to work as efficiently as we were if we were in the classroom. But I also hope that all of you who are planning to get into STEM field, even if you're any minority, will still attempt to go to. Because no matter what, even if you're just a minority, even if you have one minority, you're in two minorities, or if you're in more than those, I want you all to realize that you'll just have to work harder to show how great you are, not just as a STEM professional, but as a person. Because if you're able to show how great you are in any minority, any small step for a minority is a big step for all of them. A lesson that we learned from each of these STEM professionals also is that perseverance was important in order to gain success in their career. And finally, as we move forward and as COVID-19 becomes less of a threat to us, I hope that when you move forward in your life, you'll be successful in all of your endeavors. No matter who you are and no matter what you do, your success is the thing that should drive you. That should make you happy. Don't let anyone else dictate how success will be for you. And with that, my name is Anthony, and I'm signing off.
Thanks so much for tuning in to our special episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Share us with your friends, share us with your family, like us on social, and most importantly, we'll see you next week.